Hey guys, He's here back with another Bitcoin video. So, Bitcoin is continuing its insane move. We're now at 51.8K. And I think that, we actually could see Bitcoin going to the high 50s, maybe around 58K. And I'll talk about why in a sec. But I just want to say that if we zoom out and we take a look at what Bitcoin, the move that Bitcoin's pulled off since the bear market bottom, which looks to me like November of 2022 was the bear market bottom at around 15.5K. Bitcoin is actually up since then 235%. And that's what makes me a little worried right now is because we've gotten such a massive move, but we never really had any sort of pain. Like this is a huge upward movement. And the biggest sell-offs we've had were only around 20 some percent, right? Like this one here, 22, from here to here, another 20, from here to here, another 21, and then from here to here, another 21. So basically only 20% moves down, and Bitcoin can be way more volatile to the downside and have way bigger downward movements than just 20%. We haven't gotten that for over a year now. And that's the only thing that makes me a little concerned is that. But apart from that, I think that Bitcoin is in an extremely bullish state right now, like extremely bullish. And it comes with the S&P. We talked about that last time. It also comes because this purple line is the halving, and the halving is so bullish for Bitcoin. We're only I don't even know. Let's see how far we are now from the halving. 68 days. So, less than 70 now, just over 2 months. And the ETF has been a pretty huge success in my opinion. I think I saw a stat on Twitter saying this week alone, ETF Bitcoin ETF inflows was 631 million, and it's only Wednesday. This week isn't even over yet, and it's already that high. I think it's a new all-time high. But I mean, Bitcoin is just proving the doubters wrong so far. Um, and I think that Bitcoin right now we're facing some a certain level of resistance because if you can actually see the green dot is where we're at now, but you can kind of see how this area right here between around, you can almost say, what is this, 51 to 53K is been a level that Bitcoin in the past has bounced off of and found support or resistance. And so if we zoom in a little bit, you can see in 2021 this was heated peak bull market, and Bitcoin was using this level as kind of a reversal. You can almost say a pivot. Right here, the first time we came, we found a little bit of resistance, but we blasted up, and we came down. We were basically finding this area as resistance when we came down, but then when we got above it, held it as support, held as support, held it as support here. We tried to broke below it. Market said no, and you could tell this market said no is because this green candle right here. Look how just it basically takes out the past 4 days of trading, right? This green candle just overlapped all four of these, and so you kind of knew that we were going to go a little bit higher after that. But found a support here, support, we broke it, found a resistance, and then later on in 2021, the second half of 2021, we came back to this level, resistance, basically support right here, a little support right here, so, and then resistance after we fell below it. So kind of a point of interest, and I think that if we are going to get above it right now, because I think Bitcoin is has a really good chance to get above it right now, really, really soon, maybe even this week. I think we could see Bitcoin going straight up to 58K because just how it has in the past, right? When we got above it here, we went straight up to 58.3. When we got above it here, this got us to 61. When we got here, 65. Here, 59. So the high 50s, maybe even the low 60s, I think Bitcoin can just go straight to, like, honestly, without even much resistance. It kind of just like goes straight to it every time. So if Bitcoin is going to get above it, I think that we could see Bitcoin go into the high 50s, maybe the low 60s. But we don't know for sure if we're going to do it yet. I just think that Bitcoin has a really, really good chance right now. The S&P is putting an all-time high still. We're still actually at 5,000 for the S&P. The narrative is just so good. The ETFs have just been inflowing a lot of money. I think the FOMO is starting to set in with a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of people were sidelined. People have been sidelined. Like, ever since this broke out, you got to realize, like, when we were down here back in September, October, a lot of people, including myself, were expecting Bitcoin to actually, get a reversal and come down to like the low 20s, like 21, maybe even 20, maybe even like come all the way down to 18K. But what happened is that we actually got the exact opposite. And I think a lot of people who were waiting for like a 20K Bitcoin here or an 18K, whatever, a lot of people didn't flip bullish, after this move here. Like, they were still saying, we'll come back down, retest 32K. Even this move will come back down. And I still think we might come back down to 32K. Like, I'm on the lookout for that still, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to play the trend. And the trend has been up, so I've just been playing Bitcoin to the upside. And I think that we've actually had a correction. I know, like I said, this one was only 21% in terms of price, but there's actually two ways you can get a correction with Bitcoin, or really just any asset. Is actually either price-based correction or a time-based correction. And what I mean by that is, for example, right here, we're going up, right? This is a nice move. We didn't really get that big of a correction. Like, 21% for Bitcoin is not that big, but what we did get here is a time-based correction. We basically went sideways. I mean, this is basically sideways. We were at the beginning of December, we were at 43K, and then it took us until February 7th to leave 43K. So basically a sideways movement here, which to me is a correction. And it kind of gives Bitcoin enough time and enough, energy to, reload, refuel the gas, and then get another move higher. So I think that we did get a correction. You can even say this was a correction too. So we kind of got like two corrections, right? We kind of got like a price-based correction of 21%, which, like I said, Bitcoin's seen bigger corrections than 20% before, but 21% is still like pretty big. But we also got the 2-month period of just going sideways corrections. We kind of got like a double correction, in my opinion, right here after this move here, which gave Bitcoin enough time to refuel. And that is another reason why I think we're seeing this leg up here. And I think that just the sentiment in the market, for example, we got to talk about the fear and greed, because yesterday we were actually in extreme greed for the first time since, I think, 2021. I think that's what the stat said. But you can see right now we're actually at 74 because of yesterday. We did get that 4% sell-off yesterday, but still in greed. And, we're coming off of a month where we were just neutral. Like, last month we were only neutral. So the fact that yesterday we were at extreme greed for the first time in a while really shows you the sentiment of the markets and how people are feeling in these markets right now. And I think that it also shows you the FOMO in the markets too, because when people are greedy, people are definitely going to FOMO. And Bitcoin can historically, if you want to take a look, let's just look at the max of all time. I think this goes back to 2018 when this indicator came out, but you can see here, we had a reading of 95 in June of 2019. And then in the peak of the bull market in 2020, early 2021, Bitcoin was in the 90s for a long time. I mean, Bitcoin was basically in the 90s for 3 months here. Then we fell off for like a few months, but then we came back into the 90s for another like 2 months. So Bitcoin can stay in elevated levels of extreme greed for a while, and we only just hit it one time for one day yesterday. So yeah, I think that, the market can get even more greedy. Like, I don't think the greed is over yet. And we'll just see how it plays out. But I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin right now. At least, like, for the next couple weeks to months. Like I said in the last video, kind of depends on the S&P. but the S&P is still doing fine. And like I said, as long as the S&P is doing fine, as long as we have these narratives, the ETF narrative is still not dead. The Bitcoin halving coming up in like what was that, 68 days? That narrative's still there, and I just think that Bitcoin can just continue going up. We might get some pullbacks, but in my opinion, I think almost any pullback right now will just be completely taken up, like eaten up quickly by traders. Like for example, like if we take this move from 38K right here, every single time Bitcoin goes to a low, it's basically putting a higher low, right? Like up here, higher low. Then we got the move here. We put in a low, came up, higher low, higher low. Even this was higher. This was higher. Even this wick right here was higher, higher. Like you can see, like we cannot put in a lower low, basically, right? Like it's basically just higher lows all this way up. That just shows me that there's so much interest in Bitcoin. People are not gonna let this, collapse unless like I said, unless the S&P does start collapsing. I think Bitcoin is fine. And just for an example, like the S&P yesterday, this is on the 4 hourlies. So you can see what happened with yesterday with the S&P was that the CPI data came in a bit underwhelming. It was a bit higher than people were expecting. And you can see that the S&P actually had a huge gap. It kind of like opened up way lower than it closed. And what that translated for Bitcoin at that time period was this candle right here, this red candle. And this is only 4 hourly candles. So basically the dump that the S&P had, it did move Bitcoin down for about 4 hours, but then Bitcoin just started to continue going up again. And so that's what I mean by like if the S&P gets a huge massive dump, maybe Bitcoin like starts like getting a big dump too. But another way you could look at this is that even though the S&P was dumping like basically all day yesterday, Bitcoin only had like 4 hours of that dump. And this is actually a characteristic of a really bullish trend, in my opinion, is whenever there's bad news in a bullish trend, Bitcoin just tends to just brush up that bad news like it's nothing and just continue going up. And it kind of did that yesterday here, where it only took 4 hours for Bitcoin to brush off the S&P sell-off, and then it's just started to go up again. So I think we can continue going up. I mean, even these 4 hourly candles right now kind of look like they're gonna like explode up. Like if we get a massive candle up right now, it kind of looks like it's gonna do that. I don't know if it's going to, but kind of looks like it might set up for something like that. But yeah, guys, I think Bitcoin is extremely bullish right now. I think it is time to be a little worried though. Like I said, if you are entering the markets, you have to remember that you're playing the game that everyone is playing, right? Like everyone is playing the same game. And so you got to realize like if you're entering it like anywhere here, you have to remember that you're entering a market where people were playing the same game back down when Bitcoin's at 15K. That's the only thing that scares me, is we're just so high up from the 15K low and we haven't really had anything other than a 20% correction. But in the short term, if you like just zoom in on, the trend, I think it's just still like up only time, in my opinion, especially with the narratives and the way people are feeling and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if we get to 58K. I think it is possible, but we'll just see. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.